Karina?
Yes.
Are you ready?
Yes.
So it will be my pleasure to announce Karina for the first presentation for today.
Well, actually, we're going to talk
Together.
the four of us. So
Never mind.
Okay,
It's your lecture today. I'm just in the audience. If you don't. So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think you will start to present your lectures and we have time afterwards to ask. Like that?
Yes, sure,
Perfect.
of course. Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming. And, well, we are all going to talk for a bit. So, actually, Nancy, I think you wanted to do the introduction. Thank you. Well, good morning. We have chosen the topic, food waste management. And due to the fact that the topic is actually quite broad, we wanted to focus our investigation only on examples that we would like to see here in Costa Rica. So the first one.
Should I assist you?
Yes.
Yes, please. Okay, so the first one I found the Lidl. I think it's pronounced Lidl. It's in the UK. It is basically a supermarket. So Lidl is based in England, Scotland, and Wales. They have this program that is called Too Good to Waste boxes. Basically what they do is that they package 5 kilos of fruit and vegetables, slightly damaged, discolored, or deteriorated, but they are still perfectly good to eat. And this box of 5 kilos only cost 1.5 pounds or $1.82. So for 5 kilos of food, that's almost $2, which is quite good. I think it's a lot of food for just $2. And another thing that I found interesting about this supermarket, Lidl, it's the feedback program. What they do is that they put these boxes available from opening to until midday, and after that, the remaining boxes, leftover boxes, are given to good causes, charity, to the people that live nearby. So I really like that initiative. I would like to see it more here in my country too. So next one. Thank you. Can we go to the other? Okay, thank you. So the previous one was an example of something that is being done elsewhere, but this is an example of Costa Rica, something that is being done here, which is called Proyecto Plato Lleno Costa Rica. So this is basically their page, their main page on the internet, if you want to look them up. Can we go to the next? Thank you. So what is this project about? Well, first it seeks to restore the value food originally had. That's what one of their main goals, to give food its value, its true value. So they rescue leftover food that is still in good quality from events, from people that do catering, etc., or even restaurants. So they rescue this leftover food and they deliver it to shelters or to comedores. I didn't know how to say comedores in English, I don't know. Anyways, comedores, or families that need it, that they cannot buy their own food. So this is an initiative intended to reduce waste by filling the needs of people who may not have the means to buy a proper meal. It's interesting because any one of us, if you know you're having a party or an event and you know you're going to have food and you might have leftover food, you can call them 2 days previous to the event and let them know that you're going to have food to give away. So they try to go by after the event and pick it up, and then they just take it to these places that they already have pointed out who need it. So this is basically, and this is the link, platollenocr.org, the one here on the right. in case you want to get in touch with them, or they do have a condition, so the food that is left has to be at least 5 kilos for them to pick it up. If not, then they'll just let you know where you can go and deliver it yourself. So this is, actually I called them, I think it was last year after one of my Christmas dinners with friends. We had like this whole turkey left over, and we called them, and they actually were very fast to get in touch with us and to let us know where we could take that and everything. So I think it's a pretty good project. Thank you.
Well, we already saw what we can do with the waste from the city, but what we can do with the waste from the countryside, what we propose here is to create the production of lactic acid from banana and pineapple waste. So this project is from the Centro Nacional de Ciencia, Cultivos y Alimentos and the Centro de Investigaciones Productos Naturales from the UCR. So, can you pass it?
Oh, sorry.
What they do is fermentation using the waste and a microorganism, the lactobacillus acid, to generate the lactic acid. Can you pass it, please? And this lactic acid will be used to create some biodegradable polymers, so that we can have containers, bottles, and plastic bags. We can also make cosmetics, and we can use it as a fertilizer because it can control the pests that attack the crops.
Okay, so thank you. So the UCR with the State University of Michigan has this program where they made a biogas digester in the Estación Fabio Rodríguez. It costed like $200,000. It reflects the advanced technology it has. I mean, the price reflects the technology. It has advanced monitoring and controls that a normal biogas digester plant wouldn't have. Also, the temperature is 50 Celsius at the morning and night. It consists of a 60 cubic meters container, and it's capable of producing 25 kilowatts of energy. In the article, it said that it was capable of supplying energy to about 6 or 7 houses, depending on how much they use. And with this process, we would have some byproducts that would be like a kind of liquid fertilizer that would be made from water residue that's enriched with phosphorus, nitrogen, and micronutrients. Also, there would be a residue of fiber that can be used to make compost. So we wouldn't be like wasting a lot of products by doing this. We would actually be using like most of it. So it would be a really great, well, it is a really great like plan. And I think that would be it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. Oh, from here. I just want to say the discussion is over. Your questions, please. No question? All those projects for waste management intend to use a lot of residues of the food again in case that we do not have more need of an arable land, even if we grow in population of that. Is it the case in your project? Would it be like that? More efficient use, something like this?
Yeah.
In case of food, it could be. Yeah.
I think actually that was kind of the idea, to show that there are certain innovative projects or initiatives, and this is the kind of thing we would like to see more happening, because I think at present they're like very, very few cases, like very.
Okay, thank you. No, I was just going to say that, so I think for now, present, these are like very few examples, but we would like to see these become, like, multiply and become more of a trend, of a thing, so we can actually start to think about waste as something useful, something that can have value. And I think we are still a long way from that, but I think these are helpful examples to think about how we can just reuse some of this.
Also, regarding the biogas digester, it uses, well, it was only being used for manure and pineapple and banana waste, but it would be great if we were able to use some other like waste.
There's one
Do
question.
you know when does this initiative start? How many years ago?
That's a good question. I'm not sure. I think it's quite new. But I found it like last year, but I don't think they've been working for a long time. I think it's something rather new. Yeah. You can volunteer if you want to.
Two more questions? So I have another question, because just to think if it is possible to do it in Europe or in Germany, we will have a lot of problems, you know why? Because of health endangering microbiological bacteria, anything like this. It is not possible for us. Even if there is a leftover from bakeries, it is not allowed to give it for welfare somehow like this. It is not allowed in that case, because everybody is in danger of to get ill somehow like this. But the idea is really great if it works very fast.
There is another organization, Banco de Alimentos, that is only raw food.
But it is interesting because in Ireland, for instance, there is something like that restaurants keep the leftovers to an organization, and then, for instance, our university, when we have like events or like, I don't know, after Micah and wanting to get together and eat something, we'll collect the leftovers from restaurants and eat. And there's also something interesting, and in Germany it also happens, the trend called dumpstering.
We do have something else. It's container diving. We call it container diving. All the rest left over from the supermarkets are in a container. And the people go there, but it is not allowed, and take it out because everything is really ready to eat. There is nothing wrong, somehow like this. But container diving is forbidden. But people do it, of course. Or they do food sharing, something like this. They have enough. But maybe you've seen something which is similar. We call it table. That's for people who can go there, which maybe are not unemployed, someone like this, and they can go there and get some. But this is mostly from the farms, sometimes from the bakeries, but it's always a little bit special in our case because everybody's afraid to get ill.
But in France, it's also beautiful that the supermarkets, or there's a new law that supermarkets are not allowed to throw away the old food and they do. So
That's a nice idea. And even when I showed you this waste management project, which I have together with students, and I've got a guest from Netherlands, and they were interested in that, because they also have the duty from law not to throw away so many things. Okay, but
Sorry. So it's very interesting because it all comes down also to regulations, because in some places regulations impede these kind of initiatives, but in other places it's the opposite. So I think there's no regulation here in Costa Rica, actually. So I think this is why this initiatives can exist.
But sometimes I think if it is not welfare, people try only to make a business out of it. If the shape of the carrots are not perfectly, if the cucumbers really are not straight, somewhere like this, people got the impression, okay, we can even buy it a little bit more in price, higher in price, and I don't think this is really a nice way, a good way, if it is like that. But they try to. There's business everywhere. It is. Oh, some more questions? I'm talking all the time. I do have some questions. When you talk about, we call it basic chemicals, when you go for the banana or pineapple, then you can use somehow like basic chemicals to make up plastics. But we do always have a problem. How long do those plastics stand in our environment until they are fully melted?
Because as I said, they are made from waste or banana or pineapple waste. So the idea is to make biodegradable plastic, so it will not contaminate the environment and it will be eco-friendly. So by using the waste, we can give a hand to the environment by creating this biodegradable plastic.
So it is possible just to say it will stay until you have run all the water or liquid in that? It will stay? Is it also possible to use it for maybe agronomical things like foils or mulch foils, something like this? What do you think? Because this would be a nice idea, that we do not have to take it after we harvest away from the field. We can just shred it, the right way. If you make it small, just leave it in that. Is there any possibility?
I think it's possible, but there are not like many studies now. We are just starting with this project, so that we hope in some years we can make better use of that.
Very nice idea. So, any more?
Can I add something to that? Back in university, there is a PhD student that is working with these biodegradable plastics, and there is some concerns about the microbiology of the soils because it's affecting the microbiology of the soil at the moment.
So the beneficial microorganisms.
Yeah.
Maybe it is too much.
Yeah, maybe.
It is like this because there is something really amazing going on also. You know, in Wageningen, not only in Wageningen, Netherlands, grows to have a lot of problems to get rid of rock wool, which is used, and you know where it's used for, of course, for the dams in the seas. But now the dams are really safe. And in that case, I talked to farmers in Germany, and they say they found a possibility just to compost it. But they need a lot of soil to get a thinning effect. But in that case, yeah, I can really think, and sometimes it's also problematic because in Germany we are searching for foils like that, or mouth foils, for a long time. And mostly you can see them still 1-2 years after harvest, after something like this, and that's really not favorable. Yeah, it is. But better than just shredding the polyethylene foils and just leave it in the soil. Better than this. But in case of potato, we have to think of soil fertility. Yeah. Someone? Comments? Anything like this? So, thank you very much. It was really nice. Thank you. There are a lot of things to see, and I should read and make corrections. And this is not everything we do. So it is this one, Kingston. You can do my pleasure to announce the next group, next presentation. And I don't know who wants to start.
Okay, so I can sit. Yep.
Good morning. Today we want to talk about the waste and residues and recycling in Costa Rica. So we want to talk about the case of the banana waste and pineapple and coffee. Well, just to introduce this topic, we want to say that Costa Rica right now we have the national decarbonization plan that is come from 2018 until 2050. And they talk about trying to reduce the use of fossil fuels in Costa Rica. So we as an agropecuary sector, we want to be part of that, and we have the possibility to do it because the agropecuary sector has a high potential in alternative sources of clean energy, and that includes all the waste that we have in all the crops that we plant here that can be used as a source of energy. Costa Rica is the main producer of pineapple in the world with 2.9 million tons per year of fruit, and that includes that we dedicate 58,600 hectares to this crop in our land.
One important thing about the pineapple fiber composition, most of the composition of the pineapple is cellulose, 80%, hemicellulose, 16%, and a little bit of lignin and pectin, only 2% of each. It's necessary 16 pineapple fruits to produce 1 square meter of fiber for industrial purposes. For example, as plastic substitute, as we just comment, textile fibers and another important agricultural use, for example, rope. It can be used in the banana industry, for example. There is some examples in the Caribbean zone in Costa Rica using ropes made from pineapple for banana production. And there is another examples. Each hectare of pineapple produces 50 tons of fruit, and it represents 250 tons of waste. We need to do something about concerning this thing, the waste.
Well, one of the alternatives to reduce this waste but is the use of crown pineapples to produce plastic. But first I want to tell you some facts about the pollution in Costa Rica for plastics. Where according to the United Nations Development Program, Costa Rica has the most polluted waste watershed in all Central America. That is Rio Grande do Sul. And in Costa Rica, it is discarded approximately 550 tons of plastic per day. So 80% of this is discarded at the sea, that you can see in this new. So a group of students from the United UCR create a new alternative to managing this waste. So they do plastic disposable kitchen utensils like plates for food. And in fact, this alternative was awarded in
2017 for the Explain Noah, who's there. Well, the process is very simple. They collect the waste of pineapple crowns, and then they wash them and liquefy in a blender. Then they dry out with a hydraulic press and moving in like plates and dry in sun, yeah. And they have plates from the pineapple waste. They only can use for food, no liquid food. It's only dry fruit.
Another use for the pineapple waste is what the other group talked about before. And actually I'm working on this project right now. What we are doing is to try to use the waste to produce biogas and biodiesel. So at the end of the production and the cycle of the crop, we are not going to have any waste. We are going to have biogas, biodiesel, and fertilizer. So the idea is that we can take the plant after we cut the fruit. We can crush the plant and then we have to squeeze it. So we are going to have a liquid part and a solid part. And with the liquid part, we are going to produce biogas. And with the solid, we are going to use some enzymes to have hydrolysis. And then we are going to use fungus that we call Humulopsis isabelina, that it's an oleaginosis fungus. So with that, we are going to produce the lipids necessary to have the biodiesel. The Fabio Ali, the one you mentioned before, they were working with this and they have a production of 40 square meters in 30 cubic meters, yeah, in 32 days. And the quality of the gas, it's important because biogas is not just methane. We have dioxide carbon and sulfuric acid, and other gases. But the one that is important to us is the methane because it's the one that can produce energy to us. So in this case, these numbers were important because it's the ones that are going to produce energy for us. As I told you before, we use a fungus that we call Humulopsis isabelina. We have to produce the seed, and we are going to create a culture media that we're going to put the fungus to grow for 2 days, and then we are going to use a bioreactor with the fungus. So in that case, we are going to have the biomass of the fungus. We are going to take it, dry it, and take the lipids from the fungus. And that's the way that we are going to have the biodiesel. Oh, and yeah, this is like the process that we use. This is in the Fabio station. So you can see all the plants here. We have to crush all the plant and then squeeze it to have the 2 parts of the plant.
Okay, we also wanted to talk about one of the most important cultivars used in Costa Rica. As you already know, there's a big mass production of coffee. But the thing is that all of the berry, we only want the 30% that is the actual grain. So it has a lot of waste. First of all, we have several parts of the berry itself. We have the silver skin, we have the parchment, we have the outer skin and the pulp. Okay, each part that is not the grain is considered a waste.
and it can pollute our waters, our lands, and we have to find a way to fix this. So each part can be used on different methods, but I wanted to present you one of them. In the case of the pulp, it is used to make compost that can be reintegrated into the systems, but also the honey waters that come out of doing the 4 different washes that the grain needs to lose its mucílago. It needs a lot of water, so there's a compromise with all the benefits that received manufacturer these beans to reduce the amount of water that they are using to take off all the different part of the grains to it for being exported. So one of the main strategies that they have been using is to separate those washing waters depending of the content of sugars that are on them. So the first wash will have the 70% of the sugars that come out of the berry. So it can be used for a biodigester, such as the same example with the pineapple, but it can also be mixed with the compost of the pulp. Another option is to make these waters of the second, third, and fourth wash into an anaerobic digester, so they can try to stabilize its pH. The main problem with these waters is that they have a pH of 3 or 4, and to be reintegrated into the water courses, it has to be at least 5, because if it's not, it's gonna mess up the biodiversity in those water courses. So there's gonna be a lot of problem with the microorganisms in those water courses. So another option is to do those processes rather rustically in the same benefits where the waters came from, and reintegrate it in the systems as the waters that we use to fill the cultivars. Another option with the honey waters is to use them as feed for the cattle. So there's a lot of investigation here in the Zootechnia school about how rich their substances are and how well they can be used as a supplement for feeding the cattle. Thank you so much.
Please, open for discussion. Questions? Yes.
How much is being used as alternative to the coal waste in the country? Just one thing that is starting, or something that is used widely used?
It has to be widely used because it's already a regulation that's something by law. So they have to minimize the waste of water, and since they can also reuse this water to irrigate the fields, it's a win-win situation for them. And these are actions like the composting, it takes a lot of time, the water take expiration of the different honey waters, it can take a lot of time. So the small producers not always do them themselves, but there's when the associations and the ICAFE come from. So they intake bigger amounts of pulp and have those spaces specialized to doing the compost, and they deliver it to the small producers. So it is being used in a wild scale, but thanks to the bigger organizations such as the
May I ask? It is rope in place of string. What do you use?
Yeah, it's in case of
Is
string.
like that?
Yeah.
Has it a high extensibility or is it that strong one?
fun.
Yeah, because there's a few things. When we do measure or cure some cultivation, we have to use plastics.
It's necessary
Because
to.
after some time they break. And everybody's always looking for that because when they remove all the plants,
It's
it
a
is
lot
easy
of
for them.
plastic.
Right, it is easy for
Discarded.
them to compost everything, even if it's a lot, I know. It is always then to remove all the plastic strings in there. Might be would be also nice use of that because we do have a lot of those plantations in Europe, a lot. But for this, of course, it has to be tested if it is strong enough because sometimes when you use somehow like we call it seaside, it is a grass, and you wait and you are in this greenhouse, it makes cluck, 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 and everything breaks at the same time. This is no fun, but this would be also a good idea because you have a lot of stuff.
We have to.
You might. Yeah. Yeah, yes, please.
Well, it's possibly not a specific question, but a comment. In the case of pineapple for this country, the crop choice is a reality. It's a reality in Costa Rica's agricultural set of decisions. The hectares, the production hectares are there. The numbers are quite high, and in fact we have to be very innovative in setting technological decisions for further use. But it's also a reality in terms of, as a country, in terms of what kind of agricultural export we want. Was it a really wise choice? And what kind of decisions we have to set in order to make those let's say production hectares keep growing. So we think about pineapple and we see the impacts in terms of landscape ecology, and well, the impacts are quite evident. So my comment is possibly not on the focus of the course, but it's something that as a country we have to be aware and possibly be more creative with environmentally friendly crops. Pineapple is a very sensitive issue.
I think you have talked about the innovation is the key for me, but because these crops are very important for our economy, especially in rural zone. So, but we have to be very creative about what we're gonna do with all the waste of this kind of industry. Maybe we can export our technology to other countries who have bigger extension area.
I think the other part with pineapple is not just of course the production that affects directly the ecology and the environment, but the other part for me it's all the laws and all the requirements that people in Europe or in the US are asking to us for exportation, because it's like, well, we don't want not even a seed of wheat in our pineapples. So that means that we have to take all the weeds from our fields, and that requires a lot of herbicides and a lot of damage in the soil. So it's hard to create a balance between what we are producing and what people are asking to us to produce, and what our consumers want, especially the people that are the importers. So I believe that it's a very, I don't know, not dangerous, but it's two things because we have to take care of the people, but we have to take care of the environment too. And yeah, we have to see how we can make this possible.
So I'm not Costa Rican. Just to say, I think it's more or less a political decision. And in that case, it's really, really dangerous, also in our part of the world. And there is sometimes also economical aspects first. And we had something similar when we talk about the weeds between rows. Students are often asked me, is it possible to have more weeds between rows, maybe of asparagus because of biodiversity? Just to think it's so simple, it makes a lot of work and it's impossible. But I've seen some fields where just farmer left some plants for the beneficial insects. Just a few. It was not so much and they got the experience. It has not to be maybe in the same amount as a row, something like this, but it is possible. But for this, we have to go on with your work to think about this. And we got another experience, and we do get this still. Let me see. Since about 10 years ago, we had really strong rules how the shape of vegetables and fruits have to be within the European commerce inside European community. And then there was a complaint because of the cucumbers, which had not to be that straight, but it was just one point. And then everybody said, okay, we reduce it only for 10 products, and the market can do this, whatever is possible to do its own regulation. And do you know what we have now? The market does its own regulation. And if it is not a perfect shape for the product, if it is not a perfect level, not a perfect cauliflower, the market will say, no, we do not accept it. Maybe we do just accept it if it is a lower price, somewhere like this. And it will take some more decades until it is more fair, this kind. So I don't know what's in between, it's always horrible to decide, but if you just decide, okay, we do not plant any more pineapple, there has to be somehow like a confidence within a global confidence that it results not in more poor people, less money, something like this, and this will take a long, long time. And when you talk about restriction, there is one possibility I was really astonished of. I don't know if you know that. One of the African countries does not use any longer plastic bags. They just set it out. It is? Right. And I was so astonished, that this is possible, but they say no more, you stop it now. And we will think about this in Germany, and we do always a lot of thinking in Germany, it takes a long time always. We try to, if it is possible, just to forbid the use of plastic bags when we go and buy maybe some fruit or vegetables, something like this. But in that case, in Rwanda, it was possible. You see, they just did it. Oh, no. Some more questions? I do always me, Therefore, I have invited me. The leftover from the biogas, is it used already as a fertilizer or a powder fertilizer?
Yeah.
Is there enough phosphorus in?
We are doing some tests right now, so we don't have the results now. But the idea is to have like microbiology tests, the chemical test, and to see how much we can produce of the lixiviates or okay. But yeah, the idea is to, for example, in the pineapple, that people from the farms can use that as a fertilizer too, and that because everybody knows that organic fertilizer is not as high in percentage as same as the chemical fertilizer. So probably it's not going to be so high as some people expect, but the biology, the community that we're going to have with that fertilizer is going to help a lot with the soil fertility. The thing is that I don't know how much we are going to have in quantity of this fertilizer, but I think it's gonna be very similar with the amount that we're gonna put in the biogas unit. So, yeah.
It's always the same when organic fertilizers do even low content of nitrogen. Sorry, it is too low in our for growing vegetables sometimes because you need so much and then you have to calculate how much to need, and it is huge amount sometimes what you have to put in the soil. Or maybe you do somehow soil fertilization, fertigation. And then, yeah, you're right. And often you cannot really expect it. It's like mineral fertilizer, sometimes it takes more time. And if the plants still grow on it, if there is no enough nitrogen supply, it's over. This is really a challenge for us.
Yeah, I think in the chemical part, it's not going to be so beneficial, but maybe in the microbiology part, it's going to be a totally different situation because probably we can add, I don't know, phosphorus or nitrogen in the soil, but the microorganisms could make it available to the plant. So it's like a balance again with the chemical and the microbiology, and especially with that soils that in the soils that we produce pineapple, because they are so poor in everything that is related with life that it's going to be like breed for the soil.
There's also the thing about in which systems it can be used, because maybe in vegetables, since their cycle is so short, you don't need those intensive doses of nutrients. But we also have a lot of semi-perennial and perennial systems, so maybe those alternatives can also be used in those cultivars, such as coffee or citrus. And we have a lot of hectares in those cultivars, and since they are longer in the field, they actually have the opportunity to take everything that those materials offer.
How expensive is it to make biogas or biodiesel from pineapples?
That's something that we were talking before, because for example, in the case that we are working in the lab, to me, it will be like very expensive the production of biodiesel, because all the process that we have to do, like the hydrolysis with the enzymes and the use of the bioreactor, and at the end of the process, maybe the quantity of the biomass of the fungus is not enough to take like 1 gallon of biodiesel to put to the tractor, for example. It's not enough. Maybe we don't have the numbers, but I think it's going to be too high for the biodiesel production. For biogas, I don't think it's too high, because the only thing that requires like energy is the part of crushing plant and squeezing. The rest is like, the process is going to be like by itself, and it's going to generate a biogas, and it's going to be just like to put system or something to like that to recollect all the biogas and produce energy or heat or something like that we can use in other part of the system. So I think the biogas is more a real thing. The biodiesel not so much, but I think it's a good option for the pineapple waste. Maybe with another thing, maybe not with the fungus, because it's more delicate and it's more, I don't know, it requires more dedication and money, maybe. But I think it's possible with other alternatives.
Is there any possibility also to produce biochar?
With pineapple?
For the leftover biochar? I think you have heard about this biochar in Germany and Europe. Everybody is looking for biochar. It is funny where its origin in Terra Preta soils. Terra Preta soils, you know this very well, of course. But it was very new for us, and some time ago people started to think we have too much organic material which we have to put back. Why don't we make biochar? It's somehow a little bit a gift, and it was banana paper. And I was really so astonished because this is a nice idea to make paper like this. So this is just to continue what you ever had. Yeah, it is. You make a lot of paper sauces. The byproducts. That's a really huge field. You would have also Spain people are like all this. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Oh, someone? The next, yes, please.
work with to make stronger resilience capacities in the communities, combine different types of knowledge, for example, indigenous knowledge and traditional knowledge. That is very important, and we talked in our field trip a little bit of this. Then learn to live with change and uncertainty. That's very difficult, but people sometimes they are used to do this, and we have to trust people, the capacity to face changes. They are doing this for years and years. Field diversity for reorganization and renewal. That's sometimes is like keeping the memory of the people, of the knowledge that is being used in the communities, and that diversity is very important. Create opportunities for self-organization. That's we will talk more about this specific. How and why is important the self-organization in the communities to address climate change challenges? This is mine too? Okay. This is another view of the same thing that I am talking about. This is like the relationship that is with an external factor like climate change and globalization. Sometimes, we have very wide kind of threats like extreme climate events, frequency, intensity, duration, damage level of that threats. We have the vulnerability, and we have to build our food sovereignty or security and the resilience, and we have to eat, and we have to produce all our vegetables and all the food that our systems need. But we have too that reactive capacity. Sometimes we are very concerned about how we can build this knowledge and bring this knowledge to the communities, and they are like waiting for us doing nothing. But that is not the case. They are doing things already. They are not waiting for us, but if we can work together, that changes will be faster than we are having now. So this reactive capacity, that social attributes of farmers to recover, that collective action, social networks, and the diversity.
Well, this is a map for the North Zone. We're gonna talk more later. According to the National Institute for Rural Development, the North Zone is considered like a natural risk zone because there is a lot of erosion and flooding increase the emergencies due to natural disasters. Also, in terms of deforestation, in this zone, 40% of the coverage of the Cayo Negro Wildlife Refuge is damaged, and also the livestock is one cause for this deforestation. The mismanagement of the natural resources. This is affecting because of the hydroelectric power generation, and it's decreased the river flow. And also, in this one we have a lot of pollution related to monoculture. It's important in this one we have a poor economic development because the problem they have, the
producers and have a lot of marketing problems.
Well, the Northern region of Costa Rica used to have like a peaceful economy, but in the last years, in the last decades, the tourism, because of the explosion of the Arno volcano, became one of the economic activities that is more important in Costa Rica. So you see, the tourism is 8.2 in the internal product in the economy of Costa Rica, and the agriculture is in the third place. What does this mean? Well, the tourism needs people, and the people needs to eat. So there's a correlation between the tourism and the agriculture in the North region, and if you see the main agricultural activities, they compete between the urbanization of the tourism and the land that they use to produce extensive cattle production and yuca and the pineapple industry. Well, we searched for a new case of alternative in production of agriculture, and we found the case of ASOPROSON. It means Asociación de Productores y Consumidores Orgánicos, we miss the word over there, and de la Zona Norte. In 2008, the University, UNED, I don't know how to say that in English, Universidad Nacional a Distancia, they start doing workshops in agriculture for the people in the North region of Costa Rica. And in 2014, they made a new emphasis, that is the agroecology production emphasis. So the people that was studying this in these workshops, they started making associations between them and started talking to each other and started going to the other fields of the people to learn how the others of their classmates of the workshops produce. And they got the idea of forming this association of organic producers in the North region. And what happened in 2017? Well, there was like a big storm, hailstorm in Costa Rica, and it was focused on the Upala sector of Costa Rica in the North region. And this association between producers was like made possible to the agricultures to keep producing, and it worked like a bank of seeds. So the Association of Women of this Upala region is they say that these types of association in the agricultural business and production is the one that will help in climate change and extreme weather conditions in the future.
Yes, according to the last case that we already heard about, there's an important program that is called the National Program of Sustainable Production and Consumption, and it is related to this association because they participated in this program, and it is about how we can, how these communities can be part of this rational management of natural resources in order to keep a balance between consumption and production, but also protecting the natural resources. So according to this program, there are some key facts or habits that should be part of these communities. For example, consuming local products, and also trying to give Costa Rican food or diets that are based on Costa Rican food in order to take advantage of all the products that are local and also that are seasonal. This is in order
order to keep the main purpose, that is to keep the right management of the natural resources that are available in these different communities.
This is a very important aspect because we have now here in the Zona Norte that market, that local market that is founded by Asoproson. They have a small organic market, and then they have the opportunity to sell their products there in the local level. And we searched a little bit about this kind of strategies, and the experience demonstrates in the studies that smallholders and territorial markets are in many respects better equipped to deal with global changes. Why? Because they are more diverse and are localized in the challenges that community faces. That kind of small markets are multifunctional and diverse, and maybe we don't want to say that this is the whole solution. We just wanted to convey that aspect to this, because the farmers are not passive, I don't know how to say it. They are not just doing nothing, waiting for the solutions. They are doing things by themselves. So this is very important to face this kind of challenges.
Well, I'm going to move here. Well, when we talk about production, and more specifically production in climate change condition, we consider it is very important to recognize all the actors and the stakeholders in the agri-change and the clusters that we are working. So that's the reason why we decided to point out the principal actors that we believe that have the power to change the way to produce food. Well, I think that all here we're aware that knowledge means power, right? So it's very important to be information flow between all these sectors. Why? Because, for example, we got the academy, we got the universities, we got MAC, for example, and all the base data and all the information in base of the research made from this institution goes to the farmers and also to the private sector. Well, actually goes to all these actors you look right here. So, for example, when we get information from the university and goes to the public sector or political sector, well, they are in charge to make right decision about this. They are in charge to make right decisions with the information that the university gives. In the case of the farmers, well, they can learn how to adapt to the climate change condition, and more importantly, how to mitigate it, because it's not just adapt to this, learn how we can change that condition. And also, well, we got the private sector, where we got the manufacturing process. And it's very important today to have information, because I think the enterprises need to, I don't know how to say it, learn to produce or ecological yes, to make ecological products, and they got the power. I mean, what we want to say with this is that all, as a consumer, as a producer, as everything you can see here, got the power to change it. It's just that we have to take the decisions. And for example, we can all take the information that I'm taking from here and go and tell to the neighbor. But in my case, I live in Cartago, and my neighbors produce, and I can go to say, hey, in the course I learned this, you can do this, to do a better, do it in a better way. So basically that's it.
No, I just wanted to close with the same idea that we have to, as professionals interested in these topics, we have to keep these things in mind and keep in mind that, for example, in the Fabio Judit, they are doing very important research, but they are not in charge of everything. They are not in charge of addressing poverty or something that can help producers to have that kind of systems of greenhouses, or I don't know. We have to ask to public sector or the government to answers to these problems too, because people need this kind of technologies to face the climate change. And all the detailed information that we got this week, these are things that need many actors to get to the fields and to function. So the trend that we expect is that the communities organize and all the actors bring together the work to make this happen.
Thanks. Well, I think that last part of the presentation is something really important, and it's supposed that here in Costa Rica, those network of knowledge transfer are really weak. The information is produced in universities and institutions like MAC, but there's no transfer of this information. There's not someone that work on taking the information to the producers. So there is a gap, and if the producers are not equipped with the technology, big technology, small technology, small technology, it doesn't matter. The technology is technology after all. And if they don't have it, if they can get it, and not only the technology, some techniques or some strategies that can be used in production in order to get prepared for those climate changes that's a reality. We're not doing anything. There is important, like you said before. This is not the solution of the problem, but it's there is a choice, and it is important that in communities, the association, if they are associated and they have they are working with his own priorities and with the local resources, they can adapt to the condition of the zone when they are facing challenge. But it's not the only it's an alternative, but it's not the solution to the problem that we are facing today. So it is important to get a stronger network to transfer the information.
Okay, about that, I wanted to tell you that I work for a foundation called Fondo de Cooperación, and we are working right now in a new project there in Zona Norte, in Huetar Norte, and we have a project called Tu Modelo, that it means Turismo Modelo de Desarrollo Sostenible, and it's just starting, but this project just wants to do that exactly, to connect the producers with the suppliers, with the tourism enterprises. We have to work first in a baseline to find the producers, to find the tourism enterprises, the hotels, the restaurants, etc. And then we want to have that value chain completed, and that the local products can be sold exactly to the local restaurants and to the local hotel, etc. So
I found it interesting that we are exactly working right now in a project like that, but we have we have to think that it needs money, it needs political will, you need to connect with a lot of actors, like for example, MAC and INAE and ICT, and a lot. And so, yes, it needs a budget, it needs people to talk, to work, and so it's not just like, oh, let's do this, but no, you need a lot of coordination, a lot of money, and external consultants, etc. But we are doing it, and I think we can do it in different places. But we are starting there in Zona Norte. Thank you.
It's a nice project. Thank you very much. So, there is one point, that's communication. Huh?
Yes.
Just to say Charlie. But to tell you from my experience, I've always been at university. I worked for 4 years in an extension service for farmers. And this was one of my hardest jobs I've ever had. Because you have to talk to people, you have not only to meet them in workshops, you have to go on their fields, you have to find the good suggestions, and afterwards you have to come back and look if it was good or not. It is hard to do that, I think you know that. And you also have to find possibility to talk to the people, you know what I mean? On the other way around, if you say, okay, there is a lot of indigenous knowledge, this is possible. So sometimes it's just like this, if we are work like scientists, we do somehow like we count, we measure, we do somehow like this, but this is necessary. Because when we go to these indigenous knowledge, we can just say, okay, we can just say it is caused by this, and we can say somehow like a forecast, if you do it like this, it will work like this. You know what I mean? It's not just what we talk together, it's more on this part, and this is always really a problem. If you bring everybody together, it's communication also very hard, but I think you do have extension services, huh?
Yes.
In Costa Rica.
Exactly. With MAC, with the Agricultural Ministry.
But this is always horrible, and in the second case I just showed you an example how to do a cultivation for irrigation. Do you remember 2 days ago? But this will never work if there are not any consultants who give somehow like an irrigation schedule to the farmers. You know what I mean? You just don't have to think about how is it possible just to build it up. You have also to show how is it possible to bring it to the farmers. And in that case, we can use really new technologies. It is not necessary to go out and look how much is now the rate for. We can use it. You know what I mean? And this could be one good idea for us, all of us, not only for Costa Rica, but all of us to use it like that. Otherwise, it makes no sense to use the high specified technology in my sense. But this idea of the knowledge is always something very special.
I just want to ask if this association works with vegetables?
Yes.
What kind of vegetables and what kind of cultivation?
I don't know about the specific vegetables, but I asked to the
like
person.
the T-shirt.
Yes,
right,
the person in charge of that. You don't know Alan Charvia? No. Well, okay. Costa Rica is small, so there was a chance. Yeah, I talked with him, and he explained to me this process, and they have a wide variety of products and the size of the fields, because some people it's just a family with a small area, and some others are big producers with more experience. So it's diverse. The little market is like feria there. So I imagine that it's diverse, just not a feria with yuca.
One day per week, this case.
Yes. I have to ask.
I don't know. We didn't ask for that. But the important thing about this feria or
or the association is that it links all the producers together, and so they can share their knowledge, and they can, I don't know how to say treque, like they can share things between without paying. So it works in a local level. We know that this type of production, it doesn't work with big hotels because you can't produce that amount of pineapple for all the hotels in the North region. But it works for the local people and for like the household production.
And with the seeds and techniques and all of that, initiative was from the people directly, or they organized themselves, and that project brings it's very important, and I think it's important to have projects, long projects with time, because this kind of changes it takes a lot of effort and it takes a lot of resources and stakeholders, so it has to be long-term solutions. And Alan was talking to me that he thinks that they are ready to continue alone after 5 years of working. They is leaving them alone a little bit, and they are about to function just by themselves. That's very important with institutions, I think, because some projects work with the people and everything's nice and they took pictures and that's all. But when the institution leaves the community, the project dies. That's sad because it's a lot of resources and effort. So the projects have to build capacities that stay there with the people, and they don't need a large amounts of money to function, but because that is not sustainable with the reality we have. And the institutions have to move to other spaces, so I think it's very important to leave their capacities.
Comments, questions? So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
This lecture room. The break is in 10. On Sunday it's more than 1 hour, I guess. But I have to leave now. Okay. So welcome back to the next presentation. And the stage is yours.
Thank you. Good morning, Dr. Judit Pfenning, professionals and students. We are so happy that we are here, and we are going to talk about social and solidarity economy. First of all, I'm going to introduce my classmates. First of all, the lady, Constanza, Alexander, Isaac, and Maya. I'm going to tell you a little numbers about the production of Costa Rica. The production volume of Costa Rica is 999,000 metric tons. The production area are 60,000 hectares, and the productivity average are 16.7 tons per hectare. So all these numbers are involved about all the production of the country, and that production also involve the small growers. That is something about we are going to focus. And one of the main problems, before Alex start with the definition, one of the main problems that we have here in Costa Rica with the small growers are the productive organization. In Costa Rica, everyone wants to produce, and no one knows what the neighbor or the other grower are going to produce and what they. So when they are going to sell the product, there is a lot of the product, and in that moment the price decreases. So there is one of the problems, the production organization. Also one of the problems are the market launch and the commercialization of the product here in Costa Rica. We have serious problems about that. And other of the problems are the middleman. Here we have a lot of that, and that's a big problem for the small growers.
Well, about the definition, is an alternative to capitalism and other authoritarian, state-dominant economic systems. People playing an active role in shaping all of the dimensions of the human life: economic, social, cultural, political, and environmental. It also aims to transform the social and economic system that includes private, public, and third sectors. Thus, it strives to overcome inequality, which includes all class society. Okay, this is important because of the food sovereignty. So it's important to the people to have access to a healthy food, and also not to depend on big companies that have like a monopoly on certain kind of food. Here in Costa Rica, there's a creation of redes it starts in 2013. This association have a lot of actors. One of them are the Association of Asociación Agroorgánica Guanacasteca. It was founded in 2011. They have in that notice, they have experience, they share experience with other kind or organization around the world. For example, with Bio Vida in Ecuador. They have they promote They promote the production and exchange of organic products in order to improve the quality of life of members of the association, family, and communities through healthy practice, commitment to people and the environment.
I want to talk about a project that is in development here in Costa Rica. It is called Mercado Choroteca Mayorista, developed by Programa Integral Mayorista Agropecuario, PIMA, and it is a very interesting project because it is helping the small growers to sell their product in a local market, and there will be also a lot of opportunities for them to know each other and to have more organization. And this product, I don't know when it's going to be ready. I think it is going to be ready in 2 years. And the cost of this project is $52 million. So to have these kind of projects here in Costa Rica, it is not very easy because it involves so much money and organization. But it is a nice project and a nice initiative of the PIMA. So that's the kind of projects we need here to support the small growers and to help the numbers I told you before to increase or to maintain that kind of numbers.
Right, I will present a few case studies from my experiences abroad to give an idea that the social and economic solidarity, it's not one model, and it depends a lot on the region where you are and the different possibility of the small growers. So the first one is in Germany. This is a field of asparagus. Well, this is a picture, but what I wanted to tell you is in Germany there is different small farmers that, because of climate change and because of the different political reforms they've been making in Europe, they're trying to see in which way small producers can gain more sovereignty on what they're producing. And something really cool they did, for instance, one of the projects was that a farmer has certain hectares and he calculated how much he could grow in there and how many families he could supply. So in this small town, it's in the surroundings of Berlin, he gathered with other families that could be interested, and what they did is they came to an agreement that each family will pay monthly or weekly a certain amount of money. So like for instance, 20 euros, and with those 20 euros, the farmer commits to each week deliver to each family certain amounts of potatoes, of lettuce, of tomato, of carrots, whatever they grow. And the reason they did this, which I think is really cool, and I think it's one, until now, of what I've seen, one of the fairest systems, is when there are droughts, when there are frost, when there is different type of factors from climate change that is affecting a whole cultivation, the only person that is suffering all of the economic responsibility behind it is the farmer. And it's not fair, because we all need the farmer to eat. And in this way, it's fairly distributed that in case there is a huge drought or something happens to the entire cultivation, that this farmer still is receiving these monthly payments and is able then to survive and overcome these phases of crisis. And it's also really nice because the people, the families that are getting the food also get directly involved. And it's for them important, the well-being of the farmer, it's important for them, the well-being of the plants, the well-being of the soil, the well-being of the environment and the ecosystem, because they're getting their fruit from this farmer. And they were also saying how nice it was that people are getting more involved. And for instance, they had like 2 hectares that was dedicated to planting old sorts of vegetables that you don't find them anymore in the market. So it also gives them the possibility to retry old potatoes or other potato sorts and other vegetables that are not grown and found in markets. And there are other projects that also started doing similar activities with crowdfunding also. And yeah, and I think it's a really nice way to get also people involved, because one of the major problems, I don't know in Costa Rica, maybe not as much because it's still not so huge densities, but in Europe, for instance in Paris or in New York, when you see documentaries, you always see how kids don't know anymore from where the food comes from, and that leads that people lose or don't give enough value or attribute enough value to what food is, and because of it, also a lot of food is wasted because they don't know how much time it takes to grow and all the effort and all the water, etc. So this is a country like Germany. In Senegal, there was another very nice initiative for social and economic solidarity. It's basically mostly run by women because of some social factors. I will not go into depth with that. But it's called Calabash de la Solidarité. And they're very poor in the rural areas of Senegal. In Senegal, they have a law that you cannot really own land, or you can only own them for a generation, like for 100 years. So the land is not of theirs, and they don't have enough money or infrastructure for each farmer to have their own pumping system, their own water irrigation system, fertilizers, etc. So what they do is that they all together have an amount of land, let's say 5 hectares, and in each farmer decides what they want to grow. So potatoes, eggplant, paprika, hibiscus, they eat a lot of hibiscus in Senegal, some bitter eggplant, etc. And what they do is that they have a weekly meeting, and in this weekly meeting, they all discuss about the things that could be done better or not. But what they do also with every week is that they have this calabash, which is half of like a pumpkin that is dry, and they cover it with a towel. And so at the beginning of each session, every person hides their hand and puts inside whatever they can. So if they can put $5, well in Senegal it is their money, let's say. If they can put 2,000 colones, they'll put it. If they put 3,000 colones, they put it. If there's somebody that cannot put anything because they did not make enough money, they don't put it. And what they do is that with this money that they accumulate weekly, they're able all together to purchase whatever they need to grow, or also, because they're very poor, some of them sometimes don't have money to pay the school fees, or if there's an emergency. One of the ladies had a funeral, her husband died, and she did not have the money for all of what involves a funeral. So there is like little committee in charge, and she was able to borrow money from that carabas to be able to pay the funeral costs, and then when she can, little by little, she'll pay back this little bank. So it's also like a social, special, little economic system that they have, and it has been working really well. There's an organization that started doing this, Swiss organization, and once it's established, then they go to other communities. Each community has different needs, but they have been able, in this way, to accumulate enough money also to eventually make schools, which is really important, and other projects. Yeah. And why does it matter to have other alternative economic systems? I think it is important because there's a quote from Henry Kissinger that says, if you control the oil, you control nations. If you control the food, you control the people. And keeping that in mind, this is a way to give people not only a more close approach again to what food is and the importance it is and how hard it is for farmers to grow the food that we eat, but it is also, I was talking to them the other day saying how crazy it is. There was, a few years ago, the World Cup, and I love soccer. But it was also a moment where I got really frustrated. It got me thinking, how is it possible that as a society, we are all okay to have somebody like Cristiano Ronaldo being paid billions of dollars a month for running behind a ball? But we are not willing, because in that period in Europe, I was studying there, there were a lot of manifestations going on because the price of the milk went up like 20 cents. So everybody in the streets were manifesting and making huge, I don't know, just like walking and being against it. And I thought, how is it possible that we're not willing to pay 20 cents more for milk or for food that we eat? And it's okay that a soccer player gets paid so much. And exactly in that same period in France, there was weekly journals about how another farmer suicided because of so much stress. There was a reform in the policy of the milk they had made, that they were cutting off the subventions that they had been making for years. And I think that this other variables of solidarity economy gives a more equal or a more fair system, that a person that is feeding all of us doesn't have to charge a load in his shoulder when something goes bad. And what was good, for instance, about the German system is, if there was a year or a crop that gave a lot more, then there was a lot more for all the families. And if there was less potatoes a year because of a disease or whatever, then they each got a little less of that potatoes, but it's still kind of fairly distributed. And as I said, it's not just one person or that farmer that has to carry with all the economical risks that are involved. And it also gives the people a chance to get more involved in the food they're doing. They also told me in Germany how nice it was for this family, that once there was a plague that got there, and they wrote the general email to all of the families saying, like, we're having this situation. And that immediately 5 people came to help out. And so it also involves people back to, yeah, I care, as I said before, for the well-being of the farmer and for the well-being of the crops, because that's eventually what's going to feed me. And so it's nice that there's also this social interaction and this closeness to growing food. So I think it's a really good alternative. There you go. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, discussion is open. Comments? Anything else? It's always me,
Well, I have a question. Do you guys know something like other projects, like they mentioned a few, but do you know small communities doing those type of projects? I heard that there are like a little comuna
bit different and that they're trying to be autosufficient, and it's also like 3-4 families that they're growing and trying to self-sustain themselves. But it's another model. It's not at all.
Most of the indigenous territories in Costa Rica, they have collective cultivars, and they have been doing that for decades, but they're doing it now, and people is going to learn from them how to do it. But yeah.
But involving other consumers? Do you know if there are projects like that?
They're doing their own. That's because I think they go against the system because they have been, I don't know, they don't want to be involved into the Costa Rican policies. They want to do it on the ground.
The problem about the fairies is that there is a lot of middlemen, so intermediarios. So that's what affects the problem. So they are not getting their product the correct payment.
I have another question, but it's a little since I'm here. May I?
Of course.
I know in Germany, for instance, there is like a seguro that the farmer can pay, and in case there is like a huge catastrophe and they're not able to make any money out of their cultivation, then the government will pay them something. Is there something like this here also?
Yes.
Yeah.
There is the agricultural insurance, but it's not the government that pays it. Here is the National Secure Institute. But there is the agricultural insurance, and right now there is a lot of cultures that they include, and it just have to be the will of the producer to obtain the insurance.
And recently they included the climate change
adaptation practices
to add to the systems of the insurance.
Yes, if you have, for example, different sustainable practices or adaptation to climate change practices, they do a discount for the producers, up to 25%. So it's a nice
incentive.
Yes.
But there is something different in Germany. Something
Yes.
paid from the government, of course. In that case, if we have any kind of disaster to everything like that. And often the farmers have to do this insurance by themselves, and then it is too costly and they will not do it in that case. And let me just comment this social gardening that you talk about. It is somehow funny because I met this Daniel Überall he was the first who made something like that in Munich. And he told me, okay, it was a nice project and we tried to reach all the people, so we made an announcement in the newspapers. But the first who said, okay, we will take part in something like this were teachers and lawyers. Yeah? These were all the people with a high income who could have enough money, enough time to do this, but not the people with lower income. They still go to the supermarket and buy the cheap things. It is like that. So let's say it's somehow, it's not in a context now. It will take some more time.
I think that's always like the question about things, because it's again, what do we value and where do we spend our money?
For sure.
Why do we always want to buy the cheapest and then we make a huge deal for 20 cents on milk, but we're perfectly fine paying everyone 15 colones on cell phones for communication? I mean, we also need it and it's modern times and whatever, but and I think that education for sure is super important, and it would be lovely if every Costa Rican school could have like a class called Alimentación or something like that, where kids are also shown how much effort it takes to grow something. But at our university, we had students that they were renting also a few pieces of land, and they started doing that with us, that we committed every week to pay them. I mean, depends, we live with roommates, so depending how many people work per apartment, we needed different amounts of vegetables and fruits and whatever they had. And of course, it also varies on the season. On winter, we only get like carrots and cabbage and stuff. But we paid every week 20 euros, and every week we went to the university and they gave us the biokiste, which is organic food, organically grown. And then we didn't even have to go to the market or anything because we got it delivered. And it worked pretty well. I mean, even for students that we don't have any money. So it's just a willingness.
I also saw this kind of system in the US, like they have the small communities, and meaning they don't have the time to go out in the fields, they will wait. And the main interest they have was the quality of the farmer doing a delivery of those bushels with all kinds of different products. So they were super excited about different stuff. So they can make like requests of a specific product. So that's interesting for them. If the kids they have like a specific morning, so the kids can come help with a specific part of the field, or with the self-speaking. That's also really popular in the case of berries and seasonal fruits. So I think it's a matter of finding the right point of interest that the people may have to make them participate in these kinds of interests.
Well, from my side, I think that the group comments are very, very, very accurate. Possibly, we are, let's say, as a planet, we're getting to such a scope in terms of, let's say, trends of climate emergency, that there are some topics that were not important are becoming important. I think that in a country like this, like Costa Rica, where we have a sort of institutional setting that somehow runs relatively well, by means of education, if we think about local finance, and we think about setting subjects of local finance and family finance in schools, and it is happening now in this debate of dual education, I'm sure that we can bring to the pensions of primary schools the issues of, let's say, food security, or let's say how to make social interactions in terms of food systems, and it's a way of educating children and making them much more aware of, say, decisions that we have to take in the near future.
I mean, how cool would it be that every class has their own little crop they have to care for, and then, that's for the school salad or whatever?
Actually, when I was in school, in my school, it was a class of agriculture, but they just put like a paper and paint the carrier, the beauty association. That's really is not something very important. We never go to a farm and do something important with food. So I don't know why that class is built in the system of education, but
It's a bit in my school. We were taken to coffee plantations, and we had to for a week like a day, go pick up coffee. And it was interesting because there's a lot of us that come from the city and don't really have the possibility.
it's very important because we have to change that vision from kids, and we're doing that here.
I don't know if here in Costa Rica it exists, but in Nicaragua there are school gardening. So most is for public school, but there teacher and the students working in the garden of the school, and they use biointensive systems. These systems where they mainly grow vegetables, so they take care of the crop during the whole life cycle. So they learn how difficult it is to work the soil, to take care of the crops, and well done, they get satisfied when they get the product and all the fruits and vegetables. So it's kind of like a way to get obvious, I don't know how to say, the student to get used to this kind of topic.
That is very important because actually I got a cousin and he decided to do a little farm in the yard. And one day I took a piece of celery and he was like, oh, what are you doing? He was very in love with what he was doing. So that is very important to learn that it's important that I can get food from what I'm doing. So teach that to the kids, it's very important.
Yeah, and that it's hard work and then they shouldn't throw the food away because that's also one of the main concerns, right? That so much food gets wasted. Or also to see, oh, this tomato has a black spot, but if you take it off, you know, I grew it, so it's still special, so I can still eat it and I'll just take it off. And maybe they go to the supermarket or whatever, then they're not so picky about, oh, it has to be perfectly fine. I mean, in Europe, it's a catastrophe. I went to an organic farm and we did potatoes, and there were some potatoes that just because they had a bump, we had to set them aside, or because they were too big, and because they're too big, supermarkets don't accept them because if you want to sell them organically, if it's too big, then the consumer will be suspicious. They'll say, oh, this is too big. And I thought, this is ridiculous. And so all of these ways, I mean, you could either feed them to the cows, but then you get like cents for that. It's very cheaply sold. Or for, you know, to make, I don't know, potato chips or other type of things. But it's still, let's say for the farmer that is producing that, it's a lot of money that they don't receive, and they should because it's a perfectly fine, beautiful potato.
But it is not always like this. If you produce in your own garden, in your own field, you get something like proudness, and I could recognize it for generations of students. When they start an experiment and they see something grow, they are really proud. It's my plant. But education for sure is the first step, but it stops afterwards because everybody tells you all the economic effects are of importance. And when people go to the supermarket, they will look for the perfect shape. Yeah? And it's just like this. Is a tomato is a small crack in the garden? No problem, it's my tomato. But on the other, there is also somehow, I don't know, there are two minds in the same body. I don't know how it is, and we're more to bring it together. Maybe also to look less on the shape, maybe also to react on the price. It is somehow like this, and yeah, for everybody, for all social layers of our society. I think so.
I read like one inform the food and food organization, and they said like about 1/3 of the food, I mean 1/3 of all the food production was waste after the harvest. And it was very sad for me because we have, I mean, all in all the planet, we have the technology more in places like the States or Europe. All the ways they have were like after harvest. In Africa, go to the supermarket, there is something happening between these two facts, and it's like crazy. Because
on the other hand, I do believe that it is necessary if we have fertilization, if we have irrigation, if we have perfect. See, sometimes like this, we should use it really in an intelligent way to have a high yield and a high quality. Yeah? Not only just to focus on what can we have on byproducts in a case when we do not have perfect shape. We should use everything because everything is also on an environmental reason.
yeah, that's
Sustainability. And on the other hand, you talked about 1/3 or no, it is less. 25% is thrown away on the producer side. I know it. And I did a small survey last year with a student because I was so astonished about that because I knew some farms around Stuttgart. And we made the experience, it is not like that. It is less in our case. But sometimes whenever I just promote something like this, it goes all over the world. Maybe it is just an average, as you said, but it is not. And I'm lucky it is not like that.
But I think yes, it does depend because, for instance, in Senegal, all the tomatoes, I mean, it's really hot. They don't have storage systems and they don't have good roads. So from the farm to the local market, by the time the tomatoes got there, it was almost tomato sauce. But going back to the food waste, in Austria was also really amazing. They made a study about the bread. And all the bread that is daily thrown away in Vienna, which is the capital city, would be enough to feed the entire city of Graz, which is the second biggest city of Austria. And that's because they like fresh bread, just recently baked out of the oven. So if it has 1 day more, they just throw it. And it's amazing. I mean, it was so heartbreaking when you went at 6 in the afternoon and the bakeries were closing, and you just saw all the bakers, or like the people from the bakery shop, just taking huge plastic bags and doing with all the bread. And I thought, oh my God, it's awful. It's crazy. That's why all this focus on producing more, I think, yeah, population is growing, but maybe we should focus a little more on distribution because food we have for...
That was another thing that I was going to say, that sometimes we think and we grow to listen like, oh, we are like agronomists, so we have to feed the world. I think that we have the technology and we produce enough food. The thing is that we don't know how to use it and how to distribute it. I mean, that is another thing, political thing, an economic thing. But it's not that we need to produce more food. I think there is enough food. It's that we don't use it correctly.
Something very interesting in Spain is the direct season application that consists well, if I got tomato that I'm not going to use, I can put it on the page and people can see where I am and how many tomatoes I'm giving. I can just give it with no prices or even sell it, but the people can see the food that is not using the other people, and then they can talk to each other and well get the bread that they are not using on the tomato, and the waste is going to be less.
The bread, there is a project is used as basic chemical substance. It is really sad, I know, but it's at least one way for waste management, which starts in the last year, makes it much better, you're right. But then you have to change your mind that people can also eat bread which is 1 day old, nobody would.
Yes, but all other things you can do, like bullying in Costa Rica with all bread, you do bullying. Or like the salmon things to make the community, you could also use all that bread. No, really, like they did before. I mean, before that's what they did. Yeah. And now you fry new bread to make the salmon things and then the community. Sometimes I think it drives me nuts.
We stay at sustainability. First, thank you very much.
different.
Los cumpleaños. Sí, Mario cumpleaños. A ver, cantar Happy Birthday. Al final de esta sexta.
So, my pleasure again to present or to introduce another presentation. And for you.
Thank you so much. Good morning, I guess. We're going to present to you our trends to face the vegetable production in a climate changing in Costa Rica. Our presentation is a little different. We're not awarding a specific solution, so we're going to talk about this first idea maybe, but that are related in a main idea. Well, the trend that we mainly are going to award is an agroecological production. Like I said before, it's a little different. I know we have talked about different systems of production and different necessities of communities and production, but I think that it's necessary to clear that there's no wrong system of production. What happens is that dependently of the goals, of the objectives, of the necessities of the community, a kind of production will fit or not. So, thinking on the production to import or to get the more yield as possible, we need to imply an agroecological production. And what it needs? Well, some of these ideas. First of all, an integrated pest management that involves biological control. As we saw when we visited the Laika, using biological control, we can face many pests of production, but it's not the only solution. We can use cultural practices, physical practices, understanding physical practices like those high-tech structure like greenhouse or storage areas that let you to manipulate some physical factors like temperature, humidity, and of course chemical control. Agroecology is different from organic production. In agroecology, we can use chemical control as other alternative. And in Costa Rica, chemical is something polemical. I have heard a lot of persons asking why Costa Rica is the #1 user of pesticides in the world. Why is so many pesticides? Well, of course there are problems, of course there are a wrong management of these pesticides, but it doesn't mean that pesticides are devil or something bad. It's a shame that are going and that the pesticide management is not the best possible, but there are need. We need the chemical. In Costa Rica, for almost 10 years, they have not been registered a new chemical. So that's a problem because you are getting, you are only using chemical with the highest toxicity group, red band, banda roja, que se le conoce. And there are so many new technologies with less toxic or less dangerous that you are not allowing to get registered because no, there's chemical and everything chemical is bad. So there's a problem that Costa Rica needs to solve. Then we can use mixed fertilization. We know that organic fertilizers have a lot of good characteristics that have less nutrients compared with the conventional fertilizers. So some experience with vegetable or grains Nicaragua has demonstrated that using mixed fertilization you can get the same or a greater yield than just conventional fertilization, even more than organic fertilization, and of course you have all the benefits on microorganisms on the soil and the structure and everything that the soil characteristics. Then precision agriculture that Roger will extend on that, and biotechnology that I think that is necessary to use all the alternatives that are possible. And there are some like genetic modified organisms that are not transgenic, but there are genetically modified that we can use. Like there are some strategies like CRISPR-Cas or other that are not transgenic organisms that we can use, and it will help us to get more yield and reduce the use of pesticides, because there are some techniques like interference, ribonucleic acid that are really good on pest control. Well, why agroecology? Because we are talking that we need produce in a sustainable system. And what is involved? What does it involve? Environmental. We need use agricultural practices that do not damage the environment. We need to take care of the society, and all those practices like scholar gardening, vertical gardening, or urban gardening, and help to take care of all of this. But we must take care of the economy, and if we want to get the greatest economy, we will need to optimize our system of production. Okay, we bring a little study case that help us to show why our ecological system and not why organic production. Okay, in this study, basically what was done was that they did a model, a projection of what's going on, what will happen in 2050. We know that we're going more than 9 billion persons in the world, and the main challenge is that we need to produce food for all of those people. Then there are some scenarios. First of all, 100% organic system of production, a conventional system of production with nothing of non-organic production. And then, with this model, they figured that for 2015, if we want to get the same amount of production that a conventional system have, with an organic system of production, we need to increase the area of production. So we can get the amount of food necessary, but we need to use a lot of area. So it means that there will be a lot of environmental problem. So we can see here the conventional system, the projection, and here we go if it were 100% organic. We can see that in all the scenarios with low or high gas on product or on yield, and even if the climate changing impact is low or high, in all the scenarios with a 100% organic production, we need more area. Interestingly, they figured out that the organic production always, even if there is a, in the study they award two topics, and first is the management of waste, and not just the management of waste. The distribution of food as well is involved in these scenarios, and then a change in the production, because the conventional production is faced against a system of production where the fuel production system is different, because we produce a lot of meat, and to feed those cows, those animals, we have to produce some grains. So the land that we're using to feed the animals, we could use to feed ourselves. So reducing this area for producing animal food and produce human food, all those scenarios are considered in the model. So, in conclusion, using an organic system of production, we can get apparently enough food to feed the population, the people in the world, but it will need a lot of area, and it will have other problems like deforesting, because you need more use of area. Obviously, nitrogen use will decrease because you are using manure and you are using urea, for example, but erosion will increase, and environmental, for example, greenhouse gases will be the same like using a conventional system. So basically the model says that water use, greenhouse gases emission, phosphorus uses will be the same. The only difference will be that in conventional system you will use more nitrogen and more pesticide. But if you can mix both systems, our conventional system and organic system and our agroecology system, you can get the best thing of both worlds. So you will get enough food, but reducing the impact on environment.
Okay, well, I'm going to tell you a brief ideas that I have. Some of them are sparse, not connected to each other. But there are some of trends that I think that agriculture is following around the world, and also in Costa Rica we will follow, that is automation. Well, all the agriculture around the world and the countries that are developing this kind of agriculture will take advantage of that, and if we don't do that, we lose competitive, we are not competitive in this case. And I think that this is one of the things that we have to work here, because at least in the university, the programs are not including these kind of things, and all the countries are working on that. Most of the developed countries are working on that, and we are not working so much, and we have not the background necessary to develop that in our program now, and this is one of the things that we have to improve. So I think that agriculture will use more sensors, more models, and also, as we were discussing before, one of the difficult things is how to transmit that information for the agriculture. And I think that one of the solutions is to create apps in which the agriculture just gives some inputs, and it will give some information that he has to follow to be successful in the production. Well, what to do about temperature in field production? I think I don't have idea about that, and because of that, I have this one as a question here. Temperature in greenhouses is maybe more. It's easier to control. Well, it's more easier than in the field, at least. It's less difficult to control. Okay, well, I think that we have to use simple technologies coupled with high technology also. And for example, in this case, I have one idea about an irrigation system in which the plant decides when the system has going to turn it on or when to turn it off, and it's using the consumption of the water. And these kind of simple things can enhance the production because the plant is not submitted to stress, and also is maybe very simple and can be adopted by a huge quantity of agriculture, of growers. Another thing that I think that maybe sometimes is a disadvantage for Costa Rica is that we have some steep regions, and agriculture in steep regions is very difficult because we cannot till the soil and these kind of things. But I think that we are losing some advantage that can have with this kind of topography. For example, the use of water and gravity to control or to move as energy to control for example, the greenhouse systems. If you have, for example, a collector in the upper part of the mountain, and you have the greenhouse in the lower part, you can use this pressure, this difference in the water, this pressure that you have with the water, and maybe with some electronics of low voltage, for example, like solenoids that open and close some valves, you can use it to move or to control the systems in the greenhouses. This is only one idea that, maybe it's not too good, too easy to implement, but it can work, I think. Another thing that I think that is possible to implement here in the future agriculture of Costa Rica, is, for example, the subsurface irrigation drainage systems that is implemented now in the Netherlands and also in Germany. They are evaluating the cost and these kind of things, but it can be used for regions like the Atlantic regions, parts of the North region and the South zone that has shallow water table. This system is just like some drains, tube drains, pipe drains that are placed in the field, and this drains is used to extract water, the excess of water, but also is used to irrigate the system with subsurface and taking advantage of the capillary rise of the water in the soil. In this case, this system has some advantages. For example, there is less evaporation because if the water is applied in the subsurface, the surface maybe is still dry and it will not evaporate too much as when you apply the upper part. Also, another advantage is that the crop is near to field capacity, and you have also, in this way, you have less stress in the crop, you can have higher yields. And also, one advantage regarding to climate change is that soil organic carbon is preserved also because the soil is always near to field capacity, is more humid, and because of that, there is more preservation of this organic matter. This is one example of modeling with this kind of irrigation or draining system. The control is without applying anything to the field. This is for the Netherlands. As you can see, you have the crop in this place submitted to aeration stress. There is too much water and there is an oxygen stress because the root doesn't have too much oxygen for the respiration. And also there are some periods of the year that you have the soil to dry. With this kind of system you can have less stress in these periods and also less stress in these other periods. And this is a system that is easy to manage, and yeah, I think that is possible for Costa Rica. This is one example also of different placing. This is the same modeling approach, placing the pipes at different depths, and you can see there is it was calculated the actual transpiration, the potential transpiration, and the percentage of the actual transpiration in relation with the potential transpiration. And you can see the control without doing anything is 70%, and you can increase the actual transpiration until up to 85%, in this case placing the drains at -50. And also, to be implemented, it has to be profitable for the grower. And and in this case, we evaluated that only with this relation. And there are some, compared to the control treatment, there is an increase in the transpiration of 16% in some cases, or 90% also in one of the treatments. And also another thing that was discussed before was marketing. Marketing, I think that is the principal problem that at least Costa Rican growers experience, because here sometimes it's not difficult to produce something, but the most difficult part is to sell this product. And I think that it is necessary to promote more associations between growers, because one grower alone cannot achieve the markets, European markets, for example, or USA market. And also it's very difficult without association to obtain certifications alone in this kind of things. One solution, I think that, sometimes we are expecting that the government give us the solutions, but we have to make the solutions for ourselves. And I think that one option is that these associations of growers have a person located at each target market, and in this case the salary of this person depends on the volume of sales that he has and also the volume of new sales that he has. I don't care, I don't mind if he can obtain a salary with more than $100,000 per month or whatever like that, but if he is working and he is obtaining and he's making the work, it is a solution that it could work. And also it's necessary to process more of the products that we are obtaining, because we are only giving products for the industries in other parts, but we are not doing too much of that. And, that's all.